After many years of both ministry and just living on this planet, one of the most damaging behaviors that I've seen, not only in other people, but in myself as well, is this practice of comparing ourselves with others. Looking around, looking at other people, and then comparing my life with their life. It's real interesting. Paul writes this to the Corinthian church. When we measure ourselves by one another and compare ourselves with one another, we are without understanding. Very interesting. To measure your life by someone else's life, Paul is saying that is not wise. That is not smart. But whether we like it or not, we all do it. We do it instinctively. Every one of us, at an early age, we began looking outside of ourselves. We began looking at people around us, and we began to compare ourselves to them. We innocently start doing this, but over time it becomes less than innocent. In fact, it starts to become ruinous because we keep comparing ourselves over and over again with all kinds of people. And Paul tells us that that is not living life wisely. We desperately want to belong, and yet we want to stand out at the same time. And so we get trapped in this comparison trap, this habit of measuring our life against others. Well, this act of comparing yourself with another, it can be a trap, it will be a trap, and it will diminish your God-given potential. This trap will keep you stuck in one place, and it can frustrate you, it can depress you, it can cause you to struggle with inferiority complex, it can make you feel inadequate and incompetent. So here's the question. How can I set boundaries for this ruinous behavior? Please note that I said, how can I set boundaries for this potentially ruinous behavior? I didn't say eliminate this behavior. The reason for this is that the act of comparing yourself with someone else is really quite normal. Everybody does it. And if you are trying to eliminate that particular habit out of your life, you are eventually going to frustrate yourself no end, and in fact, you're probably going to create another obsession. What we need to do is to learn how to manage this behavior so that it ceases to be a trap that ensnares us and keeps us from being what God designed us to be. So, here again is the question, how can I set boundaries that keep me from this ruinous behavior? How can I keep this act of comparing myself with others in check? Well, what I want to do is share with you 4 action steps that can limit or manage this trap of comparing yourself with others. There's a lot more things we could look at, but over the years, as I've not only looked at my life, but also dealing with hundreds and hundreds of people, I've discovered that these 4 areas, these 4 action steps, if you will, can be very helpful. And the first one is this, and it should be obvious. Monitor your social media. Let me say it again. Monitor your social media. In other words, you need to be aware of how much time you spend on social media, and you need to limit that time. I know, and I don't need to tell you, you know as well, that overwhelmingly people around the globe spend hours on their phones or on their computers, on their iPads, whatever, but they are absorbed with social media, and they are constantly looking at the behaviors and actions of others and then measuring their life with what they see. Please understand, and I think you know this, but I'm going to say it anyway, you need to always view social media with a healthy dose of skepticism. And the reason for that is what you're looking at, what you're viewing, is not reality. And the reason it's not is because of the use of AI and the sophisticated editing apps that are now available. People can edit anything to make it look whatever they want. And you need to be aware that what you're viewing is simply not real. It is fake. and you want to monitor that time. I'm not telling you to completely eliminate social media. No, I mean, it's fun. I enjoy it. What I am saying, though, is be aware, how much time do you spend? What I would encourage you to do is just one day take a moment and do an inventory and just discover how much time do you actually spend looking at social media, and just log it to see. I think you'll be surprised. And what I'm encouraging you to do is back down. Don't spend near the amount of time. Monitor your social media. Otherwise, you're going to get into the trap of constantly looking at others, and without even realizing it, you're going to subconsciously begin to compare yourself with them. That's the first action step. Here's the second. Be aware of your self-talk. In other words, be aware of what's going on inside your head, the conversations that you are forever having, and we all have them. These conversations in which we compare ourselves with others, whatever that might be, they are like a running tape playing over and over and over and again in our head. We need to be aware of what's going on, the conversations we're having with ourselves in our head. We need to stop the judgmental talk that accuses us of not measuring up when we look at others. Stop all that. And I mean, stop it. When that thought occurs, when it surfaces in your mind, you're going to have to train yourself to stop it and tell yourself, no, I'm not going there. I am mentally not going into that corner and have that conversation. It'll stop right here. Listen, you're going to have to do this for a while, but if you continually stop all these conversations going on in your head, over time, you'll begin to see that little bit by little bit, they begin to disappear. They'll never go completely away, but they will not be the abiding presence that often they are. You need to be aware of that self-talk. And if you don't see it, you need to start seeing it, because you've got to put a stop to it. Because as you listen to all of this judgmental conversation going on in your head, it will derail you. It is ruinous. So that's the second action step. Be aware of your self-talk. Here's the third action step. Know your God-given design. I cannot stress this enough. You have got to know how God made you, how God wired you. You must understand that you as an individual, you are unique. In truth, there's no one like you. Oh, there may be some similarities here and there, but you are unique. You have your own special way of doing life. You look at things through the lens of your eyes, if you will, and you respond and react in ways that are unique to you. And you need to know what that is. You need to be aware of how it is that you do life every day. I know because, again, years and years of ministry with people, most people do not know who they are. They've spent so much time comparing their lives with others, trying to copy others, trying to be what they think is acceptable or better, whatever that might be, and they're trapped and they have no idea who they are. I can remember back years ago when I first got into ministry. I was this young pastor with a church, basically a starting church. And as it began to grow and we began to build, I began to look around at other pastors that were a lot more successful than I was, and I began to try to emulate them, try to be what they were. But guess what? I failed over and over again. Why? I'm not them. I'm not them. I'm me. And over time, and it took quite a number of years, I began to discover, who am I? How did God make me? How did God wire me? What makes me tick? What is it that I like to do? What are the things that I like to pursue? Listen, there are all kinds of personality assessments out there, like the DISC, or Strength Finders. They're just everywhere. What I would encourage you to do, if you've not already done so, is begin to take advantage of these different personality assessments. Take them. Do many of them, because you need to really hone in who you are and who God made you to be, because the reality is this: you're going to do life your way every time because it's wired into you, and you need to know what that is. And when you do, then you can stay in your own lane. You won't keep getting out of your lane and try to get into somebody else's lane, where ultimately you're going to feel frustrated and you will fail, because that's not you. You need to stay in your lane. And the more that you know yourself and how you do life, the better you are at setting goals, goals that are attainable, goals that are within the lane, that is the lane that God created for you. So, you got to know who you are. Finally, the last action step is this, and that is to change your narrative. What do I mean by that? Changing your narrative? Do not feel like you're losing just because somebody else is winning. Let me say that again. Do not feel like you are losing just because those around you are winning. Oh, my. When we see other people get ahead, excel, and we see ourselves stalled and going nowhere, we get envious and we want to be like them. But you need to change that narrative. And, oh, please hear me. What do I mean by that is, instead of comparing yourself and then getting down on yourself, why don't you celebrate the wins of other people? When you see people advancing, when you see people getting better at whatever it is they're doing and accomplishing things, celebrate with them. Cheer them on, because what it will do for you is it'll release you from this trap of comparing yourself and saying, well, what the heck is wrong with me? Why am I not doing that? Why am I such a loser? You are not a loser. You're just not them. You're you. What you can do is you can look at people, you can learn from their success, but that's where the comparison stops. Just learn from them, but remember, you are not them. You are who God made you to be. That's why that third step a minute ago, when I told you, you need to discover who it is that God made you to be. That is, know your God-given design. That will so free you up. And as you begin to be aware of this self-talk, all this conversation going on inside your head, all this judgmental stuff that you keep hammering yourself with because of others that you see, and ultimately, when you monitor your social media, when you begin to downsize and not spend so much time online, but rather begin to look around and embrace all that God has given you. Let me just close with this. Please understand, you as an individual, you are very, very unique, and you want to be who God made you to be. But to go back to that verse that I began with, that Paul wrote to the church in Corinth. He wrote, when we measure ourselves by one another and compare ourselves with one another, we are without understanding. What Paul is telling you and me is this: when we measure our life by the lives of others, that is simply not smart. That is not a good way to live life. You need to live life the way God has made you. So, to do that, you need to get out of the trap of comparing yourself with others, learning how to set those boundaries that puts this ruinous behavior in check. Hey, listen, I do hope this has been helpful. I know it's brief. There's so much more that we could get into. I just wanted to cover some things and just give you some food for thought and to begin to look at your life. Because what I truly want for you is to embrace all that God has for you without looking around, looking at other people and comparing your life with them, but rather celebrating who you are and who God made you to be. Listen, if this has been helpful, also take a moment just to hit that like button. And also, if you've not yet subscribed to this channel, please do so. As I state over and over, I post a video every week, and my goal, my desire is to help not only you, But truthfully, I'm helping myself as well, that together we can grow in all that God not only has for us, but also in His Word, the Bible, as we gain more and more understanding of it. Well, listen, thanks so much for viewing today, and as always, God's very best to you.